songs, and guests. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. Oh, what's up, baby? To your help.
1, 2, get down.
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.World, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.World.
Hello, this is Sage Prince. Are you considering making lifestyle changes, eating a healthier diet, but you're not quite sure where to start? Well, I can help. Just My Opinion, a music program centered in R&B and hip-hop, but delivered in an organic, free-range music mix, providing you a nutrient-rich listening environment that can improve your mood and overall sense of well-being. So start your healthy lifestyle with healthier listening. Check out Just My Opinion with Sage Prince here on RainierAvenueRadio.World.
This is Karen Z with RainierAvenueRadio.World, and we want to hear from you. Our goal is to amplify and share the diverse voices of Southeast Seattle residents. Do you know of an engaged community member who should be featured in a community spotlight? Tell us about them. Do you know of an upcoming family-friendly, educational, or cultural event coming up? Tell us about it. If you have news to share, contact us by emailing RainierAvenueRadio.World@gmail.com. Once again, please email us at RainierAvenueRadio.World@gmail.com.
You're listening to the news on RainierAvenueRadio.World. I'm Kendra. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, 2019. The news on Rainier Avenue Radio is live every Wednesday from 6:30 to 7 p.m., providing you with current, trustworthy, useful news content focused on super service to the local South Seattle audience. We will not tell you what to think, but instead provide the basics for you to discern and decide for yourself. Now over to Natalie with the local news.
Thanks, Kendra. Late Sunday night, 2 people were shot and wounded along Rainier Avenue South at a liquor store. According to Patch.com, the incident was reported around 10 p.m. along the 9200 block of Rainier Avenue, which is near a Safeway south of Henderson Street. Police arrived to find one man at the scene with gunshot wounds to the neck and clavicle, and he was taken to Harborview. The second victim, a 16-year-old boy, approached officers with a gunshot wound in his hand. The suspect was wearing a dark Nike hoodie and dark pants at the time of the shooting. Police are asking anyone with information to call the non-emergency line at 206-625-5011 if you have any information. In other news, this according to the AP, Customs and Border Protection officials say officers arrested 3 Mexican men as they crossed into the U.S. from Canada on a freight train carrying grain. Agency spokesperson Renee Archer says the men ranging in age from 25 to 33 were arrested on Sunday. She say they were hiding in a rail car under some bags. Archer says the men were processed for removal from the United States and then taken to the federal government's privately run Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. In other news, a handful of gun laws in Washington state were set to be signed into law Tuesday by Governor Jay Inslee. There are several gun responsibility bills, including one that bans 3D printed guns and untraceable firearms, better known as ghost guns. The controversial bill was also backed by Attorney General Bob Ferguson, who pointed out that many of the materials used in 3D printed guns would not set off a metal detector. My Northwest states that the bill signed, many loopholes will close, including one that previously allowed people with a history of violence or found incompetent to stand trial to buy a gun. Another measure removes all guns from a home where there is a history of domestic violence calls. There are several bills that were signed into law at 9:30 a.m. in Olympia. Yes, just yesterday. Many of the bills saw controversy as advocates for gun rights squared off with victims of gun violence before the bills passed the state and the House in the Senate. Now over to Kendra for more local news.
Thanks, Natalie. 25 small businesses came out today in support of Seattle City Council's 6th District candidate Sergio Garcia. According to a statement released today, some but not all of the business that support Garcia include Tilde and Pines, Mike's Sweets, the Sunset Tavern, and Hattie's Hat. In response to this show of support, Garcia said, quote, "I have worked together with so many of these businesses as a police officer on safety issues. I am honored to have their support and endorsement for this campaign," unquote. Max Genero, owner of Hattie's Hat and the Sunset Tavern, added, quote, "It's clear to me and anyone who has witnessed Sergio interacting with residents, visitors, and business owners of Ballard that he has a deep respect and love for our neighborhood. There's no one I want representing me as a District 6 resident and business owner than Sergio." In other news, Kane County health officials have added to the list of places a man with measles traveled while visiting the Seattle area in late April. Patch.com reports that the patient, who is from British Columbia, visited many local high-traffic areas, including the Space Needle, Post Alley, and a Lake Union Air Terminal. Measles is very contagious and can linger in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person has left. Anyone who is at the locations below should check with a doctor. Symptoms like fever, rash, and cough typically begin about 21 days after exposure. Here's the most up-to-date list of locations the patients visited as of Monday evening, according to King County Public Health. April 21st, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. was the SeaTac International Airport, Gate 85 to Main Terminal. April 24th to 28th, starting at 10 p.m., Marriott Courtyard Hotel Pioneer Square, 612 2nd Avenue. April 25th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., Storyville Coffee, 1001 1st Avenue. April 25th, 5 to 7 p.m., Kenmore Air Lake Union, 950 Westlake Avenue North. April 26th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., Immediate Clinic, Capitol Hill, 1512 Broadway. April 26, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., the monorail on Westlake Station to Seattle Center. April 26, 2:30 to 6 p.m., the Space Needle, 400 Broad Street. April 27th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Slate Coffee Roasters, 602 2nd Avenue. April 27th, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., the Museum of Pop Culture, 325 5th Avenue. April 27th, 2:30 to 4:30 p.m., Market Fresh, 720 Olive Way. April 27th, 9 to 11:30 p.m., The Tasting Room, 1924 Post Alley. April 27th, 9:30 p.m. to 2 a.m., The Pink Door, 1919 Post Alley. April 28th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Slate Coffee Roasters, 602 2nd Avenue. And April 28th, 10:45 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., Kenmore Air Lake Union, Flight M5340. You can find this list of dates, times, and locations on Patch.com's article about the subject. If you were at one of the sightings during that time frame, we urge you to go see a doctor. Finally, in local news, a King County Council committee will take up the issue of Uber and Lyft driver screenings on Monday, just weeks after the latest local arrest of a rideshare driver accused of sexually assaulting a passenger. According to Patch.com, Bellevue police arrested 34-year-old Hasan Shakir in late April for assaulting an Arizona woman in his car. The woman fell asleep during a ride between Bellevue and Seattle and woke up to find herself handcuffed with Shakir groping her. Police also see Shakir as a suspect in other similar assaults in Kirkland, SeaTac, and Seattle. On St. Patrick's Day, a woman was assaulted after getting a rideshare car outside a Kirkland bar, and last December, a woman was raped on a ride between Ballard and White Center after she got into a fake rideshare car. A Tequila man, Israel Ramos Islas, 34, was charged with a rape in that case in April. The King County Council Government Accountability and Oversight Committee will get a briefing on driver screenings on Monday from Uber and Lyft. The County Records and Licensing Department, which oversees taxi and rideshare driving certification in the King County, will also be involved. This is the news on RainierAvenueRadio.World. If you're enjoying this broadcast, please consider participating in Give Big 2019 and donating to your local favorite radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.World. We will be back with national news after this short break. Welcome back to the national news on RainierAvenueRadio.World. Thousands of Uber and Lyft drivers across the country are planning to turn off their apps to protest what they are seeing as a decline of wages at a time when both companies are raking in billions of dollars from investors. Seattle rideshare drivers are not going on strike but are holding a driver speak out event Wednesday in coordination with what's called the National Day of Action, where labor unions rally for better conditions. Drivers want to highlight increasingly high company take rates, low pay, and driver concerns. Wednesday's Seattle event happened at 11 a.m. at SeaTac Airport's ride-hail lot at 3037 South 160th Street. A news release for the event says members of the App-Based Drivers Association will discuss, quote, new information that exposes how Uber and Lyft are pocketing an increasingly greater share of rider payment in Seattle market while drivers are earning less, unquote. The protests are timed in advance of Uber's initial public stock offering on Friday. Uber aims to raise $9 billion from investors and is expected to be valued up at $91.5 billion. Lyft has already cashed in with Wall Street investors. Many drivers live in cities that are known for high cost of living, so they turn rideshare driving into another stream of income to offset those costs. Quote, our cost of living, the rent, gas price, everything else goes up, but the wage we are making has been the same, unquote, said rideshare driver Fasil Tika. Lyft said its drivers' hourly earnings have increased over the last 2 years, that 75% of its drivers work less than 10 hours per week to supplement existing jobs, and that on average, the company's drivers earn on over $20 an hour. Strikes and other actions happened in San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Chicago, Boston, and Washington, D.C. In Colorado, 2 gunmen, 4 students, entered STEM Highlands Ranch on Tuesday afternoon. 8 students ended up wounded as a result of the attack, and the shooters were arrested. The one death was that of 18-year-old Kendra Castillo, who, when one of the gunmen came into his classroom, lunged at the attacker and was shot dead. According to the New York Times, parents and students described Castillo's actions as the latest act of self-sacrifice by students who now find themselves on the front lines of fighting off gunmen in America's schools. Nui Giasoli, an 18-year-old senior who was in the class at the time, called Castillo's split decision to lunge for the gunman meant the giving other students a precious few seconds of cover to dive under their desk or rush the gunman. She said that a cluster of boys then attacked the gunman, allowing her and the others to flee for safety. Classmates described Castillo as a gentle, kind young man who had dreams of becoming an engineer like his father and was interested in how to fix things, frequently tinkering with his Jeep. Now over to Natalie for more national news.
Thanks, Kendra. The nation's most productive agricultural state will ban a widely used pesticide blamed for harming brain development in babies, California officials said on Wednesday. The move, cheered by environmental groups, would outlaw chlorpyrifos after scientists deemed it a toxic air contaminant and discovered it to be more dangerous than previously thought. The decision comes after regulators in several states have taken steps in recent years to restrict the pesticide currently used on about 60 different crops in California, including grapes, almonds, and oranges. Hawaii banned it last year, and New York lawmakers recently sent a bill to the governor outlawing use of the pesticide. Dr. Gina Solomon, a medical professor at the University of California, San Francisco, and former deputy secretary of Cal EPA, said chlorpyrifos is unusual in that it's one of the best understood pesticides because it's been so extensively studied. Studies in cities where the pesticide was once used to kill cockroaches before it was banned for indoor use in 2000 and in rural farm worker communities showed it harmed brain development in fetuses and affected reading ability, IQ, and led to hyperactivity in children, Solomon said. Even head sizes were smaller in children whose mothers were exposed to the pesticide. While the ban, technically known as a cancellation, could take up 2 years to take to effect, the State Department of Pesticide Regulation has recommended that county agriculture commissioners adopt stricter rules on where and how the chemical can be applied, including larger buffer zones. While most environmental groups applauded the announcement, Earth Justice said it would continue pushing legislation to ban the chemical because it questions whether the Department of Pesticide Regulation will follow through. In other news, on Tuesday, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signed one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the nation, effectively banning abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy when doctors can usually start detecting a fetal heartbeat. According to the New York Times, Georgia is the 4th state to enact a so-called fetal heartbeat law this year. Like in other states, it is expected to face a swift legal challenge, which supporters hope will lead to a reevaluation by the United States Supreme Court of the landmark 1973 ruling that made abortion legal nationwide. The Georgia law, which would take effect in 2020, prohibits most abortions once doctors can discern a fetal heartbeat, a milestone that occurs before some women even know they are pregnant. In practice, the limit on abortion in Georgia will now be 6 weeks of pregnancy instead of 20. Exceptions are allowed to prevent death or serious harm to the women, and in case of rape or incest in which a police report has been filed. The law critics said that they intend to target Republicans for defeat, especially those from the demographically shifting northern suburbs of Atlanta who supported the bill in the General Assembly. Now, this is the news on RainierAvenueRadio.World. If you're enjoying this broadcast, please consider participating in Give Big 2019 happening today. You can donate to your local favorite radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.World. We'll be back with national news after this, global news, after this short break.
Welcome back to RainierAvenueRadio.World. In global news, a British nurse who was denied a Guinness World Record because she ran the 2019 London Marathon in pants instead of a dress was granted her title this week after a public outcry over what many called outdated and sexist criteria. The New York Times reports that Jessica Anderson beat a record set in 2015 for the fastest woman to run the marathon in a nurse's uniform by 32 seconds while wearing baggy blue scrubs, her uniform as an employee of the National Health Service in the East End of London. Anderson's record, 3 hours, 8 minutes, 22 seconds at the marathon on April 28th, was initially rejected by the tracking organization for her wearing scrubs, as officials said it had to be a white or blue dress, pinafore apron, and white cap, or it wouldn't count as a record. This spurred an outpouring of anger on social media. Nurses posted photos of their real uniforms on Twitter with the hashtag #WhatNursesWear. What many asked why Guinness would enforce a stereotype, since nurses, including men, are not required to wear skirts or dresses on the job. Guinness made a statement on Tuesday saying that they would reverse the decision. In other news, this morning in Lahore, a bombing outside one of Pakistan's most revered Sufi shrines killed at least 10 people, including 5 police officers, and wounded at least 20 other people, raising concerns about militant violence targeting a moderate strand of Islam. The New York Times stated that the investigators are trying to determine who is behind the attack and that there has been no immediate claim of responsibility. The bombing took place on the second day of Ramadan, the Muslim holy month of fasting. The shrine, popularly known as Data Darbar, is one of the major monuments and cultural landmarks of Lahore and attracts hundreds of devotees daily. The shrine complex remains busy throughout the day and late evenings as visitors throng in it for prayers and alms. The names of the bombing victims have yet to be released, and we will keep you updated on the story as it develops and if the names are released. Today, millions of South Africans cast ballots voting for the first time since President Cyril Ramaphosa assumed power early last year, with promises to renew both his corruption-ridden party and the beleaguered nation. According to the New York Times, Ramaphosa and his party, the African National Congress, face an electorate increasingly disillusioned with the state of South Africa's democracy. The vote is partly a referendum on Ramaphosa, whose personal popularity has consistently pulled higher than his party's. Polls show that many of the ANC's traditional supporters approve of him, but they question whether he can outflank powerful party rivals and root out the endemic corruption that has come to define the ANC, what was once Nelson Mandela's liberation movement. Ramaphosa made the battle against corruption a pillar of his campaign. At his party's last rally before Election Day, he addressed widespread criticism that no party official has been held accountable for corruption since he forced Jacob Zuma, his scandal-tainted predecessor, out of office more than a year ago. Natalie, how about you take over the rest of global news?
Thanks, Kendra. I'll do that. In other global news, a Russian-made Aeroflot plane made a hard emergency landing in Moscow on Sunday before bursting into flames, killing 41 of the 78 people on board. Video footage showed the rocky crash landing as the jet bounced several times on the runway before its rear portion was engulfed by flames. Other videos showed passengers escaping on the plane's emergency inflated slides as fire trucks raced to the scene. The plane, a Sukhoi Superjet 100, had departed Moscow on Sunday evening, bound for Murmansk in the northwest Russia region. According to the flight tracking service Flight Radar 24, Aeroflot Flight 1492 indicated a radio communications failure and then a general emergency before its disastrous landing at Moscow's Sheremetyevo Airport about a half hour after takeoff. Among the victims of the crash were 2 children, a U.S. citizen, and a flight attendant named Maxim Mosiv, who died while trying to help passengers escape the plane, according to TASS. Investigators are looking into possible causes for the incident, including pilot error, inclement weather, and equipment failure, according to Russian media cited by the AP. The Kremlin has also opened a criminal investigation, Charles Maines reports for NPR from Moscow. In other news, in the Philippines, President Rodrigo Duterte has given Canada a May 15th deadline to take back tons of trash mistakenly sent to the Philippines several years ago, saying he will ship the garbage back if the Canadians do not comply. According to the New York Times, the trash arrived in 2013 and 2014 in more than 100 containers delivered from Canada by a private Canadian company and marked as recyclable scrap. But dozens of the containers held used adult diapers, household garbage, plastic bags, and other waste. The Canadian government has said that it is working on resolving the dispute. It amended environmental laws in 2016 to set liability for private companies in such cases and to compel them to take back the waste. Duterte threatened to dump the trash in Canada, saying, "Let's quarrel with Canada. I will declare war against them. Load that up on a ship, and I will advise Canada that your garbage is on the way. Prepare a grand reception. Eat it if you want to." That's directly from Duterte. In other news, a Pakistani Christian woman who spent 8 years on death row after being found guilty of blasphemy, a conviction that was later overturned, has arrived in Canada. In 2010, Asia Bibi was convicted and sentenced to death after being accused, based on little evidence, of speaking against the Prophet Muhammad during a heated argument with Muslim women. According to the New York Times, she insisted that she had not done so and that she was the victim of false accusations prompted by bigotry. The original verdict convicting Ms. Bibi drew worldwide condemnation and calls for overturning Pakistan's contentious blasphemy law, which was passed under the military dictator General Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq in the 1980s as a way to promote Islam and unite the country. Bibi, a former farm worker in her early 50s, was cleared of the charges last year and released from prison under government protection. That led to calls for her execution and violent protests by hardline Islamists that paralyzed large parts of the country. Her family appealed for asylum in Canada, Britain, and the United States, saying that Bibi was in grave danger. Her lawyer, Saiful Malook, briefly left Pakistan, citing threats to his life. Bibi is in Ottawa, where her 2 daughters have lived since December. This is the news on RainierAvenueRadio.World. If you're enjoying this broadcast, please once again consider participating in Give Big 2019 and donating to your favorite local radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.World. We'll be back with sports news after this short break.
Welcome back to Sports News. This recent, President Donald Trump awarded golfer Tiger Woods the nation's highest civilian honor on Monday, describing the 43-year-old as a true legend who transferred golf and then fought through years of injury to return to the sports summit. Trump awarded Woods with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Woods is the 4th golfer to earn that distinction and certainly the youngest. While he dominated the sport for more than a decade, he won his first major in nearly 11 years at last month's Masters tournament, a comeback that captivated the sporting world. Tiger was back on top, Trump declared during the Rose Garden ceremony. Trump described the litany of victories Woods has obtained during his remarkable career and the injuries that almost derailed it. This evening, we are in the presence of a true legend and extraordinary athlete who has transformed golf and achieved new levels of dominance. Trump said during the presentation, he's also a great person. He's a great guy. Jack Nicklaus, a previous recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, was among several golfers to congratulate Woods in messages on their Twitter account. Woods has joined at the ceremony by his mother, daughter, son, and his girlfriend, Erica Herman. Woods' father, Earl, passed away more than a decade ago. Woods' longtime caddy, Joe LaCava, also attended. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is given to individuals who have made especially meritorious contributions to the security of national interests of the United States, world peace, and the cultural or other important public or private endeavors, according to the White House. Presidents have complete discretion over whom they honor with the medal. Now over to Jaylen Mackenzie.
Thank you, Keith. Jaylen Mackenzie, a 14-year-old rising football star from Belleville, Illinois, was shot and killed on Saturday night around 11:40 p.m. Illinois State Police said in a release, numerous law enforcement agencies responded to reports of a disturbance and shots fired at a large party in Venice, near the Illinois-Missouri border. Mackenzie had been at that party when a fight broke out. Jaylen then walked outside the party to leave, and then a stray bullet hit him. He and a 15-year-old girl were taken to a hospital where Jaylen died a short time later, police said. The unidentified girl is in critical condition. The 14-year-old, already had college offers from the University of Missouri and University of Illinois. He was featured in the future issue of Sports Illustrated in November 2018, along with 5 other teen sports stars. He wanted to be a pro star in California, playing for either the Los Angeles Rams or Chargers. In an act of kindness, Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott has told the Mackenzie family that he will fully pay for the funeral. Let our thoughts and prayers go out to the Mackenzie family. A's right-hander Mike Fiers threw a no-hitter on Tuesday against the Reds, the second no-hitter of his career and the 13th in A's history, following lefty Sean Manaea's no-hitter against the Red Sox last April. For the second year in a row, an A's pitcher threw the first no-hitter of his season. The start of the game between the Cincinnati Reds and the Oakland Athletics in Oakland, California was delayed 98 minutes before because of lighting malfunction. 3 panels of lights, about 100 bulbs, above the left field stands weren't working, but the teams eventually agreed to go ahead and start the game. When A's pitcher Fiers pitched Joey Votto leading off the game, the bulbs began turning back on. Then Fiers turned it on. He was saved with 2 superb catches in the 6th inning when Jurickson Profar ranged into shallow right field to make a diving catch on Kyle Farmer's blooper, and then Ramon Laureano made the play of the game when he robbed Votto of a home run with a leaping grab in left center. Fiers' gem was also the 300th no-hitter in MLB history, and only 11,794 people were at the ballpark to see it, the lowest attendance of a no-no since 1999. Now over to Kendra with the show plugs.
Thanks, Luke. Tonight, May 8th, Rainier Avenue Radio is still broadcasting a live fundraising drive, so feel free to make a pledge at givebig2019.org/RainierAvenueRadio. Again, that's givebig2019.org/RainierAvenueRadio. Also, join us for the next 4 Fridays at Pritchard Beach in Rainier Beach for Rainier Avenue Radio's Cultural Dance Series. Starting this Friday, May 10th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., come over for free all-age dance lessons in a variety of cultures, and please spread the word. This has been the news on RainierAvenueRadio.World. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not trying out new wigs and cocktail dresses, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.World.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.World.
On RainierAvenueRadio.World, look for the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and host, helping you to feel good and look good, and who wouldn't want some of that? All that and more from the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on RainierAvenueRadio.World. Stories, songs, and guests. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. What's up, baby? To your help.
Hello, this is Sage Prince. Are you considering making lifestyle changes? Eating a healthier diet, but you're not quite sure where to start? Well, I can help. Just My Opinion, a music program centered in R&B